around 3 years ago, I was residing in West Oakland, California, between downtown and Lower Bottoms. It was a relatively quiet neighborhood, especially late at night when I'd be up enjoying some music and a few beers. It wasn't a safe area by a long stretch, but gunshots were few and far between, and I hadn't experienced anything too sketchy in a while. On this particular evening, I was hanging out naked in my bed, smoking weed. It had been dead quiet until a woman's screams abruptly cut through the silence. I immediately shot up, and adrenaline began coursing through my body. The screams I was hearing were unlike anything I'd heard a human make before. These made my blood run cold. This woman was in serious fucking trouble. Fight or flight kicked in, and I went with fight. I scrambled to throw on a shirt and some pants, followed by my Doc Marten boots, the official boots for ass-kicking. My hands were visibly trembling while grabbing the machete next to my bed, and rushed outside. I'm a young woman living alone without a gun, so I assume standing naked in the middle of my room with a machete is my best line of defense if someone were to break in. It's around 2 a.m., and these screams are not subsiding. They are desperate. They are filled with agony and fear. I can only imagine this woman is getting stabbed to death or something along those lines. I would run towards where I thought the screams were coming from, stop to listen closely, and then redirect myself to attempt to get closer. These went on for what felt like 5 minutes. No one else had bothered coming outside to see what all the commotion was. I'm beginning to feel hopeless on top of knowing I could get seriously injured or possibly killed when I find this guy. Suddenly, an extremely powerful voice exclaims,
"Get the fuck off of her!"
You could hear it in his voice that this was one big, strong black dude who was not playing around. Then, as quickly as the screaming started, everything went as quiet as before. You could hear a pin drop. There were no more screams, no fighting, no talking, just nothing. I stood there for several minutes trying to calm my ass down, and then I began to walk back to my apartment. It was as if nothing ever happened. I felt like I was in a dream. I left that apartment soon after due to an attempted break-in. Let's not meet dumbasses who don't know how to efficiently use a crowbar. Followed by my next-door neighbor being a peeping Tom late one night. I've moved on from all of those things, but those screams will always haunt me. I think about them often and wonder if she made it. This is an encounter my mother had shortly after I was born. It takes place in the mid-1980s in central London. It's early summer, and being London, this means hot and muggy. Some background. I'm my mother's firstborn, though not first pregnancy. The women in my family have health issues, which means we are prone to miscarriages, and pregnancy is basically hell. Right before falling pregnant with me, my mother had experienced her first miscarriage, and well, she was not in the best state of mind. She was incredibly depressed and fearful that something would go wrong with me. This was not helped by the fact that she didn't even have a bump until she was 8 months gone. And rather than gain weight, she had lost it due to extreme morning sickness, and it dropped from a UK size 8 to 10 to a UK 4 to 6. Additionally, during my birth, she had required resuscitation after almost dying from complications, and I had been born with some health issues. So all in all, she was not a healthy pup, and neither was I. But at least I slept a lot, so she got to rest at least. Anyway, at this point, I'm about 6 weeks old, and my mother is still really ill and run down, but she needs to sort out a passport for me so she can show me off to her family in Spain before we moved abroad to Israel. My dad is Israeli and had been offered a job back home. However, at the time, and being the age I was, the only option was to put me on either my dad's or my mother's passports until I was older. Since my dad was working all the time, this meant going to the Spanish embassy. My mother is Spanish, and getting my name added to my mother's passport. So a hot and muggy day in London, the Spanish embassy is incredibly slow at doing anything and spent ages messing my mother around before finally telling her she needs to come back the following week to complete the passport process. My mother isn't happy, and she is ill and fed up, Plus, she has me in a papoose across her chest, which only adds to the heat. She goes down the steps to the tube platform so she can catch the tube home, but there are delays, so she has to wait. Around her are a mix of people, but mostly men in business suits. She doesn't notice the tall, heavy-built guy staring at her until he's by her side. He starts trying it on with her, telling her how he could show her a good time, and if she was up for it. My mother glares, points to me in the papoose, and sternly tells him that she's a married mother, and in no way is she interested in him or anyone else for a good time. The guy starts getting more aggressive with his approach, keeps telling her how he's going to give her a time she'll never forget, and starts trying to touch her. My mother pushes him away and tells him to back off. At this point, the other commuters are starting to notice something is up, but don't do anything. The guy then makes a grab for my mother and tries to pick her up and pull her towards the tube steps. He makes a go to reach for me in the papoose, so as to throw me off, and my mother at this point flips. Now, the way my mother describes it, she said it was like a red haze. All she knew was that I was in danger, and she was too ill and fed up to be pushed around by some rapey asshole. She yanked herself away from his grip and proceeded to start punching, scratching, and kicking the guy with all of her strength. She didn't care that she was barely chest height to him. She just wanted him away from her. The guy was screaming at her that she was crazy and he would kill her, but she kept on attacking him. The other commuters, after watching in shock for a few seconds, suddenly realize that they need to do something and step in to help my mother. The police are called, and the guy, now flat out on the ground, is arrested. My mother is shaking. She's still angry and wants to keep beating on the guy, but some of the commuters are holding her back, trying to calm her down. One of the commuters comes up to her and tells her that was the bravest and most stupid thing he's ever seen a woman do. She asks why, and he points to the guy as he's being taken away. He had a knife and had been trying to use it to stab her and me as she was attacking him. At this point, the reality of the situation has sunken in. This guy had wanted to essentially rape and kill her, and when she'd attacked, she had come incredibly close to having both herself and me killed. She burst into tears and was assisted home by the other commuters. In 2010, my hometown was shaken by disappearances. First, there was small children missing, new report every week. In the same month, the woman disappeared too, and people started speculating that it could be organ trafficking related. Everybody talked about a black Jeep SUV spotted in the days of the disappearances. My mom was working late in the center of the city, so I went to see her one evening. I stayed until 10 p.m. and decided to walk home despite her pointing out the danger in the city. I was determined to have a walk and assured her that it was safe, and people were all around the streets at that time. Other than the bus station where I saw a few taxis, there wasn't a living soul in front of me or passing cars. No noise except for the river. I had to pass a bridge then after 100 meters on the left of my street, just a couple of minutes to my home. As I walked on the bridge, I saw a black SUV Jeep parked right in front of me on the corner of the street. On the sidewalk, I had to pass. The second I saw it, the lights went off. I couldn't hear the engine in the distance, but I'm certain they shut off the engine so I wouldn't notice and then walk by. But without hesitation, I just turned around and continued to walk back fast. I was in the middle of the bridge. When I started to pass the bus station street with the taxis right in front of me, I slowed down to check, and the SUV was driving parallel to my walking. I watched the black glass until it sped off, and I waited for a while before sprinting home. Maybe a week later, I was on the phone with my boyfriend, walking home, and again, it wasn't late. As I passed the spot where the SUV was parked previously, I decided to pass my street on the right side because there were houses I could easily approach, just in case. As I was passing my street, I heard a car the second I was stepping on the right side, still on the phone with my boyfriend. The car pulled over on the sidewalk. I ran to the front yard of the first house. A man got out of the back door of the car and started approaching me. I was telling my boyfriend what was happening and went closer to the front door of the house. The man started yelling something at me in Albanian dialect and finally went back in the car and they sped off. There were 4 men in that car.